Now it is my pleasure to introduce a visionary leader, someone who will tell us why we should be hopeful about the future of humankind and why the future outlook is actually positive. So here to speak about big data on our human experience, please welcome Wolfgang Fengler from the World Bank and Reka Artner from Pioneers and TEDx Vienna. Come on out, guys. A round of applause. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Reka. Take it away.
What a pitching session. Insane. Perfect. With a great applause, I would like to welcome Wolfgang on the Pioneers 19 stage. Awesome. I'm fascinating of how you guys can still keep up the energy after 2 full days of pioneering here. And you know, guys, for this session, we selected somebody to give you this really future outlook. You know, we heard so much about these different technologies. They're going to change our future. They're going to impact the way we live in 5, 10, 20 years. And what we want to do in this last session, we want to understand where we're going. Is everything that we're hearing really true? There is a bit of this notion of, you know, the world is getting worse, especially if you think about my generations, the millennials. We're told that we're going to be actually financially worse off than our parents have before, and all these things. And that's why I'm so super excited to have you here, Wolfgang. Thank you for joining us. And we want to, with the claim, walk the talks, really go beyond the hype and understand what's real behind it. You know, where are people just talking and where is actually data and science behind it. So to start off, I would love to understand, what will you say? What are the main benefits of really having this chance to glimpse into a future?
Well, thank you, Reka, and congratulations for this amazing 2 days. I'm not sure if you remember when we met the first time, which was in TEDx Vienna when I first presented my first data machine, which tells you how long you live. So anybody interested how long you live, check out Population.io. And don't be superstitious, and you may not want to know exactly how long you live. But if you just reflect on the last 2 days and just the pictures now, a lot has to do with the basic needs of every human, which is having a pretty good, long, healthy life. Being healthier, having predictive health modules, having all these nice tools to increase your wealth. Most people would like that. And even if you don't interested in having a longer, healthier, better life, it's just good to have the facts right when you discuss it in the evenings, discussing politics, discussing development. That's somehow my passion and my interest.
Absolutely. I think we're all for living a longer and healthier life. What you mentioned before, I remember if you go actually on that website, you can see your date of death. Is that correct?
That's correct. Again, this is math. It's not health or medicine. It assumes you're an average of your kind. And the nice thing, you may remember that what people really liked when I presented it. I'm German, as you know. Here in Austria, I live a half a year longer in Austria. And I don't know exactly why, but that's basically my machine tells you. So Austria is a good place to be, not just for pioneers, but in general.
Perfect. So for the international ones among you, move to Austria, because it might show something else than in your calendar of your due date. But actually coming to you in the audience, we would super love to quiz you a little. So Wolfgang and I prepared something special. And we know it's the last session, and we know that we are kind of standing before announcing the winner of the Pioneer of the Year. But still, we would love for you to interact, because we have a lot of great individuals, intellectuals in this room. And what I mentioned before is that there is a lot of misconception, right, of what the future is going to look like. So we would ask you to take out your phones. So these are the rare opportunities in a panel where you're allowed to take out your phone without being judged for not listening. And we would ask you to go on slide.do. And we're going to start with the first question. I think it's already in the poll. We're already ready with it. And we would ask you, is the population growth, Is it accelerating, stable, or slowing down? Let's see what the audience is saying. Okay. Okay, Wolfgang, we're moving around. We have a bit of accelerating, a bit of slowing down. Not a lot of people think it's going to stay stable, but we're pretty close, and accelerating is winning a little. Perfect. Thank you, guys. We're moving on to our next question. Stick with us. Stick in your tool. Will the number of births until 2030 go up, stay stable, or go down? Okay. So apparently women have to do a lot in the next years because births are going up. Good to know. Okay, thank you so much, guys. We are moving on to our third question. We'll turn around. Will the number of deaths until 2030 go up, stay stable, or go down? Okay. So apparently more of us. Go up is winning a little versus go down. You know what I love about this audience? There is no middle ground. It's never stay stable. It's either one extreme or the other. I love this. That's great. Fourth question. Is global poverty declining fast, declining slowly, staying stable, rising slowly, or rising fast? Global poverty. What are you guys thinking? Declining slowly? Declining fast? Perfect. Again, not really the stable ones. Perfect. And last but not least, our last question, until we move into giving you all the answers, is the number of people in the global middle class rising fast, rising slowly, staying stable, declining slowly, or declining fast? Perfect. Well, apparently that's good news for the wallets around the world. It seems like it's rising fast. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, guys, for participating. Super interesting to see. As mentioned before, there seems to be sometimes a misperception of how it's going to change in the future. And seeing your answers, some were correct, some were not.
Yeah.
So I would like to go back to the first question. And also we prepared a bit of slides, a bit of material to actually visually explain you of where the future is taking us, of how it's going to go in the future. So I would like to go back to a very first question about the population growth. Is it accelerating, being stable, or slowing down?
Great.
And here we already had the first thing.
Thanks. So first of all, you did pretty well. You didn't get everything wrong. Typically, my audiences get everything wrong, but so that's good. I think you got 2 right or so. So this one I think you got wrong because it's obviously population growth. The question was a bit of a trick, right? The population is still growing. It's a bit like imagine you're on a highway, and the question is, do you accelerate? Do you go onto the gas? Don't you do anything, or do you go onto the brake? And it's actually the brake. It's slowing down, and if you go on the slide, the next one, you'll see, I'm not sure if anybody here in the room is born 1968. It's a historic year. You may not know, it's the only year population growth was above 2% in human history. So if you click it, you'll see the peak is 1968. And since then, we are on a big decline. And today, we are almost exactly at 1%. So we have 7.7 billion people divided by 80 million. My home country is the growth of every year. Germany, 80 million every year. That basically is today. So it's quite a slowdown. We still have a way to go, but it's a slowdown. And if you go to the next slide, it's the only one addition, which is actually pretty interesting. Because if you look at the media, and that was your point, Rekha, people asking, why, this big problem, refugee crisis, population growth, how do we manage the planet? Obviously, we're getting more people. Some predict, the UN predicts 11 million, others predict only 9 million till 2100. The question is, why is it happening? Is it a problem? And so it's actually not a problem, because if you look at the number of children, you'll see they're stable. It's 2 billion children today, 2 billion children 10 years ago, 2 billion children in 50 years. It's just stable, same amount of children. So why is there population growth? It's because of you guys, and because of us, because of adults. And we want to still have longer, healthy lives. And if you have them, there will be more people. And that you don't want to change, I think. So that's the answer to the first question.
Perfect. I remember on the first day yesterday, we had a panel on, are we going to become a transplanetary species? Obviously also with a bit of the notion, are we outgrowing planet Earth? So with a simple answer, I guess it was a tricky one, but still, are we outgrowing planet Earth?
Well, I'm happy if I live till 100, that I'm okay with. And we see it already now that people born today, girls, especially in Korea, they will live till 100. But you'll see on the next answers, there's some maybe surprises that you didn't anticipate.
Let's go to the surprises.
Yeah. So I think this one you got wrong. Why is population growth slowing down? Obviously, it's a simple question. It has to do with birth or death. So either birth goes down or death goes up, or a combination. And so if you click again, actually population growth is stable. It's often interesting, when you do this data work, you see a lot of stable lines. So it is actually stable, and I've just did the other projection. It will stay stable the next 50 years, roughly 140 million. So birth is stable.
That means that we don't have to work that much, right?
Second.
I remember the audience answering that it will absolutely, it would
Increase,
grow,
yeah.
right? That birth rates will go
exactly.
up. But they're staying stable.
The projections are it's all stable. It was stable already the last 10 years. What is interesting on the death, so again, check the numbers, 140, 60. The gap is 80 million. That's population growth. Actually, more death. That's surprising, right? You talked a lot about these medical breakthroughs and improvements, so why is there more death? And that's the next chart. It's actually good reason. There's more death because for the first time, you go forward, in human history, it's actually old people dying. In the past, there were no old people. Just keep going. Thank you. There were no old people. People died too early. So finally, old people die. And it's the first time in human history now that people above 65 are the majority. People die. There's still too many who are young dying. Children are still 7 million dying. Us, like our group, working adults, not dying, still many dying. But it's the seniors and the really old people that die more. And there will be more old people, and that's why there will be more death. Simple math, actually.
Perfect, understand. Because we were also talking, obviously, what you mentioned before, you know, with the panel on longevity, etc., right? Trying to prolong our life. So how would you say would that impact the charts that you're showing us now?
Well, it's already in there, right? If you think of, and we talk a lot about global goals, right? One good goal would be to get the death before 65 to 0, especially children and us. And again, it would be a good question how you can get there, because it's not quite clear what people die from. Right? Many children die very young in infancy, adults die in car accidents, malaria, many mix of diseases. So getting that to 0, you have then old people dying, but it's eventually people will die, except we go into this transplanetary business that you mentioned. And so as long as there's more old people, which we have now, so many old people, will be more death.
Understand. On a more positive note, let's maybe look at the question that we had about global poverty, right? We asked if it's declining fast, slowly, staying stable, or rising. And I remember, I think the audience being very optimistic, answering declining fast.
Great. So first, it's great you were optimistic, because most people think when you look at the headlines and the media that is actually the other way. Poverty is declining reasonably fast, 1 person per second, but we still said it's moderately fast, not super fast, because it would need to be double the speed to end poverty by 2030, which is the global goal Austria and all your countries agreed to, and the UN goal. So it is slowing, and it's slowing down. And so it still is a good news, but the best has happened, partly because Asia is running out of poor people, and Africa is not catching up enough yet.
Got it. And the last question we had on here was about the middle class. if globally it's rising fast, slowly, staying stable, or declining. And I think if I remember correctly, our audience was getting that one right, right?
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting, right? Because again, I'm not sure if you have the numbers already, but there's roughly 2.5 people per second are being added to the world. 5 people born, 2 dying, so 2.5 added to the world. But there's more people entering the middle class that are being born. Or that are being added to the world, because so many people are actually at this threshold now. And that's also your business opportunity, because these people are the consumers of the future. So if you organize the world in a simple way, and there are 7.6 billion, there's 600 million poor people that you saw, there's roughly 200 million rich people. Which is the next group on the right. And I'm happy to discuss how you measure this. And this is a data machine I also helped to build, and I think people from the World Data Lab are here in the audience who helped to build this. But the interesting thing is, the action is not at the extremes. The rich are also not your market, there's too few. The action is in the middle, and the middle class is defined by 10 euros a day net spending. So a family of 5 would spend 50 euros a day. And so there is actually 3.2 billion just below, and there's 3.6 billion is above. And it's actually a historic moment, because if you add that together, you see 3.8 billion on the left side and 3.8 billion on the right side. The first time in human history. But that's why you need these data machines to basically know that it's happening. So if you go further, you can calculate how many people jump. And as you just saw, if you keep going, 1 person jumps out of poverty. But how many jump in the middle class? 5 people per second. How many is this per year? How many people is this per year, guys? 31 million seconds per year. That means 150 million per year. That means a lot of people in 6 years. 1 billion extra in the middle class. That's the big message. And if you go to the next slide, you'll actually see that we will experience middle class dominance in the next decade. So don't believe what people say in Europe and the US. If anything, the middle class is shrinking in the US because there's more rich people coming. But if you keep going, you see middle class dominance. 2/3 of the world will be in the middle class by 2030.
That's incredible. I mean, that's absolutely, in my opinion, screwed in media a lot of how the middle class is changing. Could you also, if you look at it globally, of how it's different between the different continents? You mentioned US, Europe, big difference. In our talk before, I think you said that 2 out of 3 in the US are part of that, right? Versus Europe, we would have to 1 out of 10 with the same income, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so obviously the big beneficiaries, and that's I think part of the debate here in Europe and the US and everywhere, are the rich. They have benefited most over the last 20 years in Europe and the US, and the middle class in Asia, the emerging middle class. And those in between, many of maybe some of the ones we work with, some are felt left behind, which is like the traditional middle class in Europe. But again, remember what is interesting, if you look at the data, how many rich people there are in the US, which is actually every second rich person in the world is American. Only every 10th person in Central Europe is a rich person. And that's also, if you think of the business or the community that's here, why do they go to the US? Partly you see the answer in this, because there's just more wealth. And then maybe if you go into this last slide, which is how will the world blocks look in the next 10 years? Today we see Europe or the EU and the US similar levels. In 10 years you see a 4-horse race. India and China basically the same consumer spending as Europe or the US.
Incredible. I mean, that's, as you mentioned before, incredible business opportunities also for all the great startups that are in the room today and with us at Pioneers. And I see that we're running out of time, but still I would love to just capture towards the end. I mean, you're such a positive thinker when it comes to the future, right? Of not everything is going bad. There is hope. How would you say, how is tech especially helping us to shape a better future, a better tomorrow?
Well, so just 2 thoughts. One is a bit, I'm not sure if those of you into hockey, but I saw there's like the championship announced here. So think of the big Wayne Gretzky quote, a good hockey player is what a puck moves where the puck is now, but a great one is what a puck will be. So anticipate developments. And the world is changing fast, so you need these data machines to predict the future. And the second is, you're all involved in many areas where disruption is happening already. Healthcare, obviously tech itself, retail. There's one area the transformation and disruption has not happened. That's my field, it's economics. And what I tried to show you, what this high-frequency granular data models will do to economics is the same what the DNA research did to medicine. And that's the revolution that's about to happen, and that's why I'm very happy that we have actually this World Data Lab here in Vienna that's actually driving some of these innovations that I just showed.
Amazing. I can't wait for that revolution and disruption to happen also in economics. We have a lot of game changers and pioneers here in the room with us, so I hope it's going to happen in the future. Wolfgang, thank you so much. There will be tons of questions to ask, but we have run out of time. So thank you for the audience for participating, and let's hear who is winning Pioneers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Wolfgang, and the amazing Rekka. Thank you very much.
Thanks.